Joe Diamede coming at you, Joe's Velosophy on this beautiful spring day here, May 3rd, 2023. And I say May 3rd today. I don't normally put my dates in front of my videos, but today is a special day in the history of my life. And it may be a special day for many people out there. It may be a birthday, an anniversary. But this day is quite tragic is a heavy word, but of course back when I was 7 years old, it was a tragic day because my 7-year-old cousin, who was my age, he was killed on his bicycle. His brand new bicycle, it was his birthday, it was his first Holy Communion because we were all brought up Catholics, and he received the bicycle for his birthday, and on his first ride out of the doorstep of his house, he was killed by a drunk driver. So, many people say, whoa, tragic. Yes, and out of that tragic day, many beautiful things did come, but of course it takes time. Out of all tragedy, we all have tragic things in our lives and things that change our lives forever. And that was obviously one that changed my family's life. Of course, his immediate family, his mother, his dad, his sisters. And we all had to deal and move on from that. And my 7-year-old self, I didn't get it. I didn't get it so much back then. He was there one day, he was gone, we were wheeled in our carriages together. Up until that day, we played with each other, we got in trouble together, we even rode bicycles together, we did a little bit of everything. We were inseparable, and then boom, he was gone. And, so this day, it brings back those memories, but also brings back some beautiful memories. The day before he died, he was at my house down in the Bronx, where I lived, my New York City jersey, my cycling jersey I got on today to remind myself my roots of where I come from. And yeah, he was at my house. We were in the backyard, and he was sitting on top of my brother's Schwinn Varsity. All you people out there in my area, you remember Schwinn Varsities. Those were the bikes to have, 10-speed English racer. Obviously, he was my older brother, so it was quite big for 8-year-old Richard on his, too young, just to be 8-year-old Richard the next day. And he sat on the top of that bicycle. And, memories of my cousin obviously have faded over the many, many, many years, 50-plus years since that day. But this one memory stays with me always. He said to me, he looked at me, he was sitting on the bicycle wheel. I get goosebumps even coming up to saying this. He said, wow, I really feel like I can see the world from the top of this bicycle. And now, did that plant a seed in my head, in young Joe's head at 7 years old? Who knows? Bicycles were always a part of my life, even back then, and I was always fixing bikes and doing things with bikes. But those words, oddly enough, came to be what I did with most of my life. After I went through my motorcycle years, I did explore the world and see the world from the top of a bicycle seat. And, was I taking my cousin with me? Who knows? But in this beautiful life we live, we affect people in good ways and sometimes in not so good ways. The words we say, the things we do, the actions we take in certain situations, they all have an effect that grows on and on. Just like the hub of a wheel, and you got your bicycle wheel with the spokes. Those spokes, it doesn't have to be 32 or 28 spokes. The wheel of life has many spokes, but if you could picture a bicycle wheel, those spokes just spread out and they just go infinitely. Without that rim, they would just keep on going, expanding into the planet. And that is how we affect people. We're each one of those spokes, and we're just going out there affecting people, our words, our thoughts, and everything we do has an impact. That man who killed my cousin on that weekend day back in 1969, who knows? Was he coming back from having a couple of drinks with some friends, and unfortunately he met my cousin in front of his house and killed him? And that's a tragedy for that man's life. And what was he going through in his family? And then he went to prison, and he came out and he killed a 12-year-old girl cycling. No, I'm sorry, not cycling. A 12-year-old girl, drunk driving. And then finally, after he did his time for that, he killed himself drunk driving. Now I know this because it's probably what happened because my uncle was a policeman, not Richard's dad, but my another brother of my mom, and he followed this guy's story, and this guy's life, I should say, and tragedy on all sides. I mean, this guy, was he tortured the rest of his life because he killed a young boy? Did he become an alcoholic because of it? Was he having this? We don't know his story. We could easily put him in a box of evil, but I'm sure he was not. He did a really bad thing. Unfortunately, changed people's lives. But again, like I said, from that day, things grew. My Aunt Jenny and I, my 7-year-old self didn't get it. My 12-year-old self, I remember asking my mom, "Hey, Mom, does Aunt Jenny like me? How come she doesn't engage with me like the other cousins?" She's like, and she explained to me, she goes, "Look, you and Richard grew up together. You were pushing the pram together. We were pregnant together, and all of a sudden he's gone. You're not. You're turning into a 12-year-old boy. You're going to high school. You're moving on with your life. Richard's frozen in time at 8 years old on that tragic day when she said, "Go take your bike for a ride and show your friend." So she's living with these things, and you're a constant reminder of that. So did I get it at 12 years old? Probably a little better at 7. But of course, later in my life, I got it. Obviously, when I became a parent, I got it even more. And I don't want to say I can understand the loss of a child. I can't. I can only imagine how tragic that would be. But out of that tragedy, my Aunt Jenny got pregnant again, gave birth to a beautiful daughter, my cousin Vicky, who brought joy back into that household. And she was an Olympic hopeful in athletics, brought sports back into the household. Uncle Frank, which was my uncle, so helped him get over his problems that were caused because of his son's death. And, so all of these things came out of that day. And who knows where life would have taken us if that day didn't happen. So things unfolded as they did, and we moved on. And years later, while I was seeing the world through on top of that bicycle seat, I found myself living in Australia. My mom, she disregarded what all her brothers and sisters and everyone would say about what's your crazy son doing living around the world. And she was like, hey, if I have a crazy son who's going to live around the world, I'm going to go visit him. So she visited me in Japan, Greece, and all different places. And when she was coming to Australia, I remember saying to her, Mom, take Aunt Jenny. Because Aunt Jenny always wanted to see Australia. We come from a working class background. None of us had a lot of money. Going to Australia 30, 40 years ago was quite exotic, And it was like, whoa, person from the Bronx or Long Island, to go to Australia, you had to have the means to do it. But I said, Mom, buy the cheapest plane ticket and let's go. We'll make it up on the ground as we go. We won't book hotels. We'll get around cheaply. And we did. And just twist of fate, my sister said, hey, take my son. He was 12 years old. So it was my 12-year-old nephew at the time, my mom, my Aunt Jenny, and myself. And we had this fantastic, healing, unbelievable time in Australia. My Aunt Jenny and we had such good laughs. We rebonded. 12-year-old Dennis didn't represent 8-year-old Richard, but he represented youth. He represented this young boy who was out there exploring Australia, into motor cars and car racing and all these sorts of things that her son was into. And her son was a real boy like I was when we grew up. And she was surrounded by all girls now, so she probably hadn't spent a lot of time with a young boy because, again, like I said, her and I, we had this little bit of dynamic in our relationship. So there was Dennis, me, my mom, had a great time. We really healed. We had a great 2 weeks there. Traveled on the cheap, and Jenny got to see Australia. We showed her kangaroos, koala bears, you name it. It was fantastic. So anyway, that wheel of life, all of those actions. Richard planted that seed. Hey, I can see the world from the bicycle. His cousin, all those years later, goes out, does see the world from a bicycle seat, and Jenny comes out to Australia. So in these wheels of life, in this beauty that we call life, do we affect each other in a positive way? Yes, we do. Can we affect each other in non-positive ways? Yes, we can. So we have to be careful of our actions and what we say and what we do and how we live our lives. We try to be better. Let's try to correct our mistakes. Let's try to move on. And, to get back to the tragedy of that day, there's a very good movie I recommend everybody watching. It's a Jack Nicholson movie from the late 70s or 80s. It's called The Crossing Guard. And it touches on this tender subject of guilt, of death, of drunk driving, and it might have missed a lot of people's radar scopes out there because it wasn't a typical Jack Nicholson movie. He plays a crossing guard of the bereaved father, and that's all I'll say. If you get the chance, watch it because it touches on what we're talking about, right here. And if you want to go to my other channel, my Joe Diamede channel, watch my interview with Aunt Jenny that I did about a year ago, last May. If you look for my videos I put up back then, TTRP TV under the Joe Diamede. Great, she recounts living in Harlem and all the beautiful things, and we just have a great rapport now, and everything we've moved on, and I just want everyone to be aware that yes, life is not going to be a bowl of cherries every single moment, but we have to be aware that every moment is special. A couple of weeks ago, if you watched my last Velosophy channel, you saw I had a fire in the house. I could have been scarred for life. I could have maybe not been able to ride my bicycle for quite a long time. 3-4 weeks later, my scars are healing. Thankfully, it was a wake-up call, but it wasn't tragic. It wasn't long-lasting, and luckily, I'm here, standing here. Did my first bicycle ride a couple of days ago, and that was an excellent feeling to be back on my bicycle and just to know that how close I was to maybe a tragic ending, maybe losing my house, maybe being scarred for life, but I'm not. And so those are the moments we have to wake up and look at these beautiful spring days, beautiful summer days. If you're down in Australia, these beautiful autumn days, and just say, hey, this is a gift. I'm going to enjoy it. everybody I meet, I'm going to try to be a positive influence on. And even if I have to really test myself and try, I'm going to try to be a better person every day and just bring more and more beauty into this world, because there's enough out there to try to get us down. But let's not do that. Let's get on our bikes. Let's take hikes. Let's just live life, like I always say on my Velosophy channel. Live life to its fullest. Always stay informed. Be as healthy as you can. And just remember that life is really meant to be lived. Every moment is a gift. And like my cousin said on the day before he died, he felt he could see the world from that bicycle. Well, who knows what happened to him the day that when that accident happened. He was taken away from this physical life, but you know what? He affected a lot of people in those 7 years of his life, and those positive vibes keep on reverberating. And how many people have I affected with my getting people on bicycles to see the world as well? So, Joe Diamede, Joe's Velosophy channel, saying be well, stay informed, be happy, and most of all, appreciate every living moment, because that's all we got. You take care.